In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the all-seeing. In the last episode, we witnessed the early preaching of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Mecca. He moved quietly among the people, conveying the message of Allah with patience and steadfastness. Some hearts began to respond, and whispers of faith spread carefully through the city. In this episode, we witness the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam guiding the first followers as they openly embrace Islam. Their faith develops through thoughtful reflection, steady guidance, and quiet courage. These early believers take the initial steps that will lay the foundation for a community destined to influence generations to come. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam continued his mission quietly, carrying the divine message to hearts willing to listen. In the early hours, a few attentive souls began to recognize the truth of his words. Their curiosity was gentle, their minds opening to the possibility of life guided by justice, compassion, and the worship of one Creator. Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu was among the first to notice the sincerity and calm authority of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Known for his noble character and thoughtful nature, he observed the Prophet closely and reflected deeply on the message of monotheism, justice, and compassion. Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu recognized the truth in the Prophet's words and character, and this led him to deliberate reflection before embracing Islam. When he embraced Islam, it was a deliberate act of conviction rather than haste. His acceptance became a foundation for others, as people respected his integrity and moral standing. Those who knew him saw that devotion to Allah was a path of strength and courage, and his example encouraged others to listen, reflect, and open their hearts to the divine message. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam guided Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu with patience and clarity, ensuring he understood the message of Tawheed and the duties of faith. In turn, Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu became a trusted companion, embodying humility, steadfastness, and unwavering commitment. Abu Bakr's early acceptance strengthened the small community of believers and set an example of sincere devotion and commitment to Allah for others to follow. After Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu embraced Islam, a subtle transformation began among those who observed him closely. People noticed the calm determination and sincerity in his actions, and it stirred curiosity and reflection. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not rush them or demand public acknowledgement, but offered understanding, patience, and moral clarity, allowing faith to take root naturally. The first followers learned that accepting Islam required sincere belief, devotion and worship, and following the guidance of Allah in all aspects of life. They met quietly in homes and secluded spaces, supporting one another, reflecting on the teachings, and observing the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In these private gatherings, the Prophet encouraged remembrance of Allah, patient reflection, and adherence to righteous conduct, helping the companions develop moral awareness and steadfastness. They practiced Islam discreetly, performing acts of worship and embodying the principles taught by the Prophet, gradually strengthening their faith. These early, careful practices allowed the community to grow in resilience, preparing them to face opposition and remain firm in both belief and conduct. Through such quiet efforts, the foundations of a faithful and enduring community were laid, capable of preserving the message of Allah and spreading it with integrity. Even as the first followers nurtured their faith in secret, the world outside tested them at every turn. The Quraysh closely watched the early Muslims and opposed the message of Islam as it reached the people of Mecca. Each day brought challenges that tested their patience and faith. As they navigated a society often hostile to their beliefs, one young believer could feel fear before praying openly, worried about the disapproval of a family member. Another could face difficulty performing acts of worship or giving charity openly, aware that some people might oppose or ridicule them. Yet they remembered the patience and integrity of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In these moments, guidance came quietly through example. The Prophet's steadfastness, his calm words, and the honesty of his character became a source of courage. The companions learned that true faith required more than belief in the heart. It demanded resilience in action, even when no one else was watching. Through private acts of worship and discreet practice, early Muslims supported one another and strengthened their faith. Every test, every moment of fear became an opportunity to grow in trust, humility, and perseverance. In this way, the early believers faced the pressures of a society unready for change. Their courage in secrecy laid the foundation for a community that could endure trials, remain firm in principle, and carry the message of Allah forward with conviction. After the first companions embraced Islam in secret, the early followers began to draw strength from one another. They knew that openly practicing their faith could invite ridicule, hostility, or even harm, so they sought safety in quiet gatherings. Small circles of believers met in homes and secluded spaces. In these gatherings, they reflected on the guidance of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Observing his character, his patience, and his steadfastness, they encouraged one another to pray, act righteously, uphold moral integrity, and remain steadfast in their faith while avoiding unnecessary attention from those opposed to Islam. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam guided these early believers with gentle counsel and patient encouragement. He emphasized sincerity, moral uprightness, and reflection, teaching that faith was not only in the heart, but also in action. Through his guidance, the companions learned to navigate the challenges of secrecy while strengthening their courage, patience, and understanding of Allah's commands. Faith became more than a private belief. It shaped how the companions lived. Their decisions, conduct, and daily actions reflected the principles of Islam. Even their simple acts of worship, performed with sincerity and patience, became means of strengthening their faith and refining their character. By supporting one another, reflecting on the Prophet's teachings, and living according to the guidance of Allah, the early Muslims laid the foundations of a resilient community. Though their numbers were small, their steadfastness, moral awareness, and unity prepared them to endure persecution, face trials with courage, and carry the message of Islam forward. In those early days, Islam was not yet spoken of in the open, yet its light had already begun to shine in the hearts of the believers. Their quiet perseverance, guided by the wisdom and compassion of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nurtured a faith that no hardship could extinguish. From these hidden gatherings grew a community bound not by power or wealth, but by conviction, sincerity, and devotion to Allah. What began in secrecy would soon emerge with strength and clarity, carrying the message of truth beyond the walls of Mecca and into the hearts of people across the world. This was the beginning of a transformation, rooted in patience, tested by trials, and sustained by unwavering faith. In the next episode, we will witness the ripple of this message extending beyond private circles as the people of Mecca begin to notice the early Muslims, The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam continues guiding the community with wisdom, preparing them to face the first signs of societal scrutiny and emerging challenges. Thank you for joining us in this sacred journey. Stay with us as we continue uncovering the life and legacy of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah guide our hearts to love him and follow his path.